Hey YouTube land. Just Jax here and Karma down below. This is a video that I have thought about for a very, very long time. And I was trying to go to sleep and was going to make it in the morning. And I'm making it before I go to bed. But for technicality's sake, it is 12:05 a.m., December 18th, 2024. Everything I have to talk about going forward is medical. It is using medical terms. It is talking about digestive things, and I will not shy away from. I won't be gross, but I'm not going to shy away from literally talking about bowel movements, especially, and other things going forward, because 30 years ago today, I was officially diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And I am going to be telling that story. I would like to say I shoot without a script. I actually, for the first time ish, have a script. Just 30 years is 10,956 days. And for those of you that know me personally and know the numerology in my life, it boils down to a 3. If you do the math. But yeah, that's how long I have officially known that I do have Crohn's disease. And getting into my story will just start at the beginning. And it's one of those things, just like learning you're queer or other things in life, that a lot of things don't make a lot of sense until you know the answer. And for me, it wasn't years and years of being sick and going to the hospitals and doctors and looking for answers that we couldn't find. It was a lot of things about me made more sense once we knew I was chronically ill. So starting the story just a couple of days beforehand, it was a Saturday, and I got really sick in the afternoon with pain, which was really odd for me. I would always get sick in the winter, and it was the winter, and I was sick that Thanksgiving, and I think I was sick around Halloween that year too. Since Crohn's disease is very much gastro related. Yeah, food was always a problem for me, and talk about that a lot going forward. So I had been sick off and on, and those two sicknesses were marred by the fact that I wouldn't eat, which was, even though I was tiny, I was 4 foot something at the time. I was not even close to 100 pounds, but I could eat. But I was a picky eater. And so anyway, this particular day over the weekend, before the 18th, I got really sick. I couldn't stand up. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say I was sick. It was that I was in so much pain, and it was sharp and it was stabbing and it would not let up. And I pretty much spent the rest of the day bedridden. And my dad, I lived with my dad and my two older brothers at the time, and I am AFAB, I am trans male, and they said, well, you're becoming a woman now, because I was 14 and a half, and I was like, kill me then. It was the worst pain of my life up until that point. I was never in pain very often, unless I literally like hit my head, hit my shin, like got hurt. I didn't just randomly hurt to my knowledge. And I was like, if this is what's going to happen once a month for the rest of my life, gut me now, is pretty much what I said, ironically. And so my dad still left for the evening and went to someone else's house to stay the night. And in the middle of the night, someone else was at our house staying the night with one of my brothers. And I was trying to call out to him, and I could barely speak because I was in so much pain. Luckily, this guy heard me, and he woke up my brother, and my brother told my dad if he did not come home and take me to the ER, he was going to take me himself. And that did get my dad to come home and take me to the ER, where we found I had a white blood cell count through the roof. I had 104 fever, and my pain was all over my abdomen. I could not locate a generalized area. I didn't know a lot of medical things at this time, but I was pretty sure that I was going to have an appendectomy, and I was really worried that my appendix had burst. That's all that I knew. And that's about all the gist I was getting from the doctors talking to my dad and myself. And I'm really sorry, Karma's making a lot of noise in this one. She has her paper, that's why. So, because it was generalized pain and not restricted to a certain area, I had a general surgeon assigned to me, and they had to wait until December 18th for me to be well enough and for there to be people in the hospital and stuff, because I went in over the weekend for me to get the surgery. And I just pretty much slept until then without, I don't know if they probably gave me morphine and all kinds of stuff, because I was in an immense amount of pain. And they didn't know what they were going to find. And so I was only told at the time that I had an appendectomy. That's all I was told in the hospital. And I was told that the reason my incision was where it was, because it was a little bit before, it's a couple inches above, around my belly button, and a couple inches down my belly button. And one of my brothers and I were told that because we were like, why'd you go around the belly button? And they said that if you would go through the belly button, that you would lose your belly button. And like when they sewed you back together, you wouldn't have a belly button. And we thought that was the coolest thing at the time, because we were teenagers, and it did sound kind of cool. Comes into play later. Because actually I'm going to have to add something to a note. Hang on. Okay, so I got through Christmas season in the hospital. And yeah, it was, for the first time in me and my brother's lives, it was the first time any of us were really sick or really hurt. There was a scare with me when I was a kid where I fell, and I had to go rush to the hospital, and I had to be in a neck brace and stuff because I had a really bad concussion. But that and some other injuries here and there, busting of heads, concussions, not really a lot of doctor's visits that I know of. Like there wasn't really anything crazy after my brothers were older. There was some stuff before I was born, or like when I was really little, I think. But, we weren't in the hospital and doctors a lot for growing up on a farm and being reckless and WWE fans. And yeah, surprisingly, we stayed healthy, and we stayed, active, and, not seriously injured. And our parents could fix us for the most part, and our grandparents. So this was huge for our family, in my own opinion. And I have some personal memories of it that mean a lot to me. And so it was a lot to possibly deal with for every member of my family. And we each, have our own stories about that. And I, haven't heard anybody else's stories other than some stuff later on. But it's one of my most memorable Christmases by far, because we would always usually celebrate on Christmas Eve together, and we missed that. So I was actually given the jacket I really wanted for Christmas in the hospital on Christmas Eve, so then I could wear it home. And, we also called it the Christmas miracle that I got released on Christmas morning. So there's that, and the crinkling of the paper. So that was the first time that I had a resection, and I was diagnosed while I was still in the hospital, and I wasn't told until December 27th. My dad decided to wait and just to get me home, and I agree with that. I don't feel like stressing me out worse having a surgery as a teenager and not knowing I was chronically ill was the best medicine. Knowing how I am now, I would still agree with that, possibly even in my 40s. So I'm not upset with that at all. There is more of that later that I'm upset about, but that decision was very much solid. And the delivery of it wasn't the best. I was just called into my dad's room and he was sitting on his bed and I came to the foot of the bed and he just told me facts and he was like, hey, by the way, yes, you did have an appendectomy, but they also removed 9.5 inches of your small intestine and they took a picture of it. I have the picture if you would like to see it. And I said that I did and I kept it for a very long time and it was pretty gnarly looking. I'm going to be factual. And so with a resection, they have to take a healthy piece of intestine at each end. So there was healthy intestine and it was extremely small compared to the enlarged, almost looked like a liver to me, piece that they had taken out. And there was black spots on the outside of it. It was really swollen. It was really inflamed and it was purplish red. And then like there was the pinkish, like the color of my skin in pieces of healthy intestine. And I wish I still had a picture of this because it is insane to me that I did not feel pain until that day, knowingly. If I did, I don't know how I was living with that, given what I've seen that has been taken out of me or my colonoscopy since, seeing the inside of my intestines so much. I do think that was the worst I've ever been. Personally, I don't know, but like I said, I just know for a kid to live with that and go through with that, I don't think I'm that tough now. I'm not going to lie. Like, that is insane to me that as a child I was dealing with that. And I don't say this anything I'm saying to be a martyr because I do downplay my illness a lot. But that was really pretty gnarly situation to face as a child too. And that was pretty much it. And I asked him to write down what I have, and he gave me the hospital paperwork and everything. And pretty much everything after that was on my own for a very, very long time. And I did call some friends over Christmas break and told them, but it was, it was Christmas and stuff, and everybody had stuff going on, and I didn't really talk about it with anybody. And then the next thing that happened was after I would have missed like a bigger chunk of school if I didn't have surgery over Christmas break. And it ended up being I'm not the best student, and I do have ADHD, and it was undiagnosed as a child, and I do have learning difficulties if slash disabilities. I am dyslexic alphabetically and numerically, and I do better as a practical learner versus a book learner and just being taught to without showing me what happens. So it was very easy for me to not catch back up in school, and technically I did fail that grade, which I think was ninth grade, 14 years old. So I did technically fail, and actually switching schools the last 2 years changed my credits to where I didn't graduate late. So that worked out. But yeah, I was behind from that point on, but I still did stuff with my class I grew up with, and I would get in trouble with the principal, but I was like, I'm in this class. I'll take all the other classes, but I'm doing stuff with that class. Anyway, funny story is after that first resection, not right away, but very quickly, I grew. Surprisingly, for me being as little as I was at the time, I shot up to my, now still same height of, barely, not even 5'5", but I would like to say so, but with my back issues now, I'm not 5'5". I'm 5'4"-ish, borderline 5'3", depending on how I walk. And, I don't know what weight I went to, but I know, like, for me and how I was, I bulked up a lot because I guess I ate even more after that. It's kind of crazy to see, but I started eating double lunches after that. And I did not dislike the school food at all. And yeah, so that's how that started. But in science class at the time, anyone in the class for extra credit could do a science-based report, kind of like a book report, but it was a subject that you picked. And if it was based off an article or something like that, I think it was that, but like we could pick any science topic and make a report out of it, and we would present it to the class, and the last portion for your grade was your opinion, up to 3 paragraphs of just about whatever you're talking about. And so I said, hey, is science and medical stuff, is medical stuff included? Can we talk, pick something medical? And she said, absolutely. So that's when I went to work on researching Crohn's disease. And it is an inflammatory bowel disease. It can affect anywhere from your mouth to your anus, and there are side effects on with having Crohn's. There's an extensive list of information that I thought about preparing, but it is so very different from patient to patient. And for me, it has been discovered that I have a severe form of Crohn's disease. I am very much food triggered, and I am very much environmentally and emotionally triggered. So there are just parts that my intestine will not digest, and it will just overflow me it just really easily. I am currently in a flare. I have a colonoscopy scheduled for next year, and pretty much every meal that I eat, and I eat smallish meals unless I do eat at the place that I work. That's the only fast food that I get, is food from where I work. I work at a local restaurant, and even just eating burger and fries from there, or chicken tenders and fries, and just eating, my daily breakfast that my friends know that I eat, I will fill my bag about 5 times. I have a colostomy now, and I will fill my bag about 5+ times after I eat any meal now. And so that has me going to the bathroom about 20 times a day. It's real easy to get in and out of now with the bag and everything, but I still have to get up, and it exhausts me. Going to the bathroom that much really does drain me. So it's a good thing that I have given up soda and other things, and I try not to snack very often because all those foods do trigger me more, especially sugar, milk chocolate, milk, those specific things, along with my nut seeds and everything else for me, and spices are my biggest triggers. So at home, I pretty much eat like a toddler and a frat guy. Lots of ramen. I try to get protein in with sandwiches and peanut butter as much as I can, peanut butter sandwiches and the like. Protein is expensive for me. I am legally disabled, and my budget is very thin because my apartment does take a lot of that, and that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. But since I can live off of processed foods and basic carbs and pastas and stuff like that easier than I can other foods, that's easier for me, because I don't really buy fresh groceries ever. If I do, it's for something specific. Because the biggest of all the losses for me food wise, oranges was a big one. And so what little bit of fruits and vegetables I do like, I do have where I eat in moderation. So it will make me sick that one time, but it's not that sick. I just have a bad night, so I'll eat it at home. But if I were to eat it 3 days in a row, or 3 out of 7 days, I'd have literally a shitty week. So there's a lot of foods, I can bring them in every once in a while. Like I'm going to a friend's house tomorrow. They were amazing about asking about my diet, but I still in the back of my mind are pretty much know that, Thursday's probably going to be a recovery day, and, that's okay, especially during a flare during the holidays. Like, that's going to happen. So for me, it is very much, I have to watch my food every single day, every meal. I have to have my life planned out extremely to the minute to know when I can eat and when I can fuel myself, because I have to eat at least 4 meals-ish a day, just to sustain energy throughout the day. I can't not eat if I don't want to without just not feeling good at all. It's just literally a sick to my stomach type of thing that I can't really explain to people. So that's why I have to make sure and over prepare, and, get timelines, and, what are we going to do? Where are we going? What can I stop and do? So I pack snacks if I'm going out of town, going to other people's houses. I always make sure that I have drinks and medicine, and, if I need to, ostomy supplies and such. So, I have to be overly prepared. Being spontaneous is really hard for me, and something I'm still dealing with, and has been irksome in romantic relationships, to say the least. And I don't blame other people for, it. Their feelings are valid, and it's hard for me. So, like, holding myself back and saying no to a lot of stuff like I used to be really bad about saying no, especially when I was in a flare and stuff and getting lost in depression. And so mental health comes into play, and the winters are always really, really hard on me because that's when my joints are the worst as I go, because rheumatoid arthritis is a cousin to Crohn's, which is why a lot of medicines overlap. Um, so yeah, it's just I implore you to do your own research and find information that you can, um, because it is a very broad topic with specifics that are different for each individual. And one of the first people I found with Crohn's in person, um, they literally had a completely different diet than me, and we just sat there like in awe of what the other person could eat. And I was just like amazed that I found somebody else with this disorder, because when I was making that report back in high school, it was a lot of grim information because it was still fairly new. There was talk about whether it was hereditary or not, and trying to figure this out and everything, and like what even treatments would work, and that surgery should be the last option has always come up so often. And a lot of people are worried that I had surgery too soon, but if I could show you that picture, no, I didn't. I almost died when I was 14 years old. Just, and I almost died before that in an accident, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, if I would have not gone to that hospital, if I wouldn't have died that weekend, it would have been sometime very, very soon, because my intestines would burst at some point. It could have just been, I could have, been playing around and horse playing and like got hit too hard and something could have happened. They were like, I wasn't told right away, but when I was told, it was shocking information that, changes your life. And I do know that from meeting Crohn's patients that have been diagnosed as an adult, yes, it took away an innocence in me, and I had to start doing stuff that, kids probably shouldn't have to do and whatever. And I've adapted to it in my own healthy and unhealthy ways, I would say. But I do have to say, I see it being very hard for adults to say no and cut back on things versus growing up with never being able to eat it, if that kind of makes any sense. So I've had a lot of people, like, after they have a Crohn's diagnosis, come to me and ask for help and ask for advice and ask, what they should do instead of this, that, or the other, or go to doctor's appointments with them. And that's why the internet changed my life. Because at first, being in a room, I was in the library by myself, and I could find very few articles in person. And so the librarian let me get online because I told her what was going on. I don't know how upfront I was with her, whether it was for me or not, but just, what in general I was looking for. And I couldn't find it in any reference in the library. And if I did, it was very, very little information. And so when I got online, it was hard. And that's what some people, yeah, are empathetic to, was the fact that I was 14 years old by myself reading articles that told me I was going to die. And yeah, I still get emotional about that. And because of that, I very much live in the moment. There are times when my favorite game is for people to guess my age, because you will never offend me. And usually it's younger. It's very rarely on the dot or over. And that's because at the time, people usually, I'm happy and go lucky and this, that, and the other, and really in a good spirits and stuff. So people guess that I'm younger. And I never take offense to that. And people are like, well, they probably thought that you were being immature. The most recent time was at work. If someone sees me happy and having so much fun, they think I'm 25 years old while I'm at work on a, stressful day, I will take that. That means I'm finding joy even in a crappy day or a stressful shift, or I'm working with people that put me in that place to where I'm mentally in a great place. I'm not like that all the time. They don't see me panic inside my house because of whatever I'm panicked about. They saw me in a moment where I was happier and I was living in the moment and I was having a good time, and I will take that as much as I can get with the overwhelmingness of being chronically ill in general, let alone since being a child. And yeah, so I have ADHD and I lost track, and that's okay. Um, yeah, when you lose an innocence and you can still find it as an adult, and collect thingamabobs and play Legos and want to become a streamer to keep an innocence alive, you can judge me for that all you want. Um, the biggest thing for me has been trial and error in learning how to live in food-based culture. The biggest problem for me is uncontrollable environments. The fact that people come to my house and eat my food when I know for a fact it's not what they would normally do, they would do it very different way. And the fact that I just hosted a Thanksgiving with probably 10 to 12 people, that nobody complained about the food and I was even complimented on, truly means a lot to me. And people like have request me to cook certain things, knowing it's not the flavorfulest thing, but in its own way it works. um since I do have a low income and everything, it's also a cheap diet. Luckily, and that's why I said protein is the hardest thing for me to get in my diet, food, cost wise, and that's why. But luckily lean based proteins don't bother me too bad, but ground beef and other things like that. And uh, yeah, so I have had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 gastro surgeries in my life, all because of my Crohn's. I had my first resection in 1994. They did take my appendix because it was close to the area, and they said that they had to legally, because if I had needed an appendectomy right after that, they could get sued. I was like, dang it. Yeah, oh well. Same thing with the belly button. I could have sued them if I woke up without a belly button and I didn't like it. I had my next resection in 1999, and I had my third, and one of my most horrible, horrible week and a half hospital stays of my life was in 2006 with my third resection. Weird that the third one was the worst. In 2012, I had resection number 4, and I had the surgery that I never wanted. I never wanted a colostomy bag, and I would talk venomously about not wanting a colostomy bag, and I would literally have like a catchphrase. It was like, hey, if I'm not getting bagged, I'm having a good day. That was horrible in more than one reason, and that is, among other things, part of the reason why I have my YouTube channel at all. I went through years of torture to not get a bag. And I didn't know how much pain I was in. This was the most painful time of my life since my first resection. I ended up with a colostomy bag not because of the amount of resections that I had, not for bowel rest. It was because of my rectum. At the time, my doctor, my GI that I'd had since 1994, and I still have, he said I had a colonoscopy, and he said that my digestive tract was being attacked in 3 areas, and he didn't know what to do, respectfully, what to prescribe, what area to treat first, which was like we could work on this one, and this one was gonna blow. We could go to this one, and he was respectfully needed backup. And I was not offended by that. I appreciated the honesty. And I started going to a GI clinic in St. Louis. And the first doctor I met, we were talking about medications that I qualified, over the course of several appointments. I qualified for more than one drug trial. I was afraid of being a guinea pig because of myself and doctor implied 1% factor, because I have failed four major medications target Crohn's disease. The last one worked at first, and then I plateaued. And hi, can you not make so much noise now? Thank you. And so I ended up coming off that medication, and I'm in a process of needing another colonoscopy to compare it to my last one 3 years ago, and to see what treatment we're gonna go do next. But yeah, during the talking about drugs, the main one that I was qualified for because of the severity of my Crohn's and everything that was going on, I was told the main side effect was death. It was explained to me that, if we mapped it out, and your intestines has a zip code and your brain has a zip code, three of the five numbers match for each one, and if they read it wrong, it'll go to your brain and it will kill you. I asked about a bag. She said I was at medium need for it, but it wasn't completely off the table, and that, um, yeah, that I needed to think about it. And I didn't. I shut down, very much so. I am a recovering alcoholic. I am 3 years sober from alcohol and pain medication. I abuse medication that helps me sleep, including Ativan and Benadryl. Even I have to be careful with allergy medicines that make me drowsy, and pain pills. I spent a lot of time before, during, and after my ostomy abusing pain pills because, one, it put me to sleep, made me numb, and didn't make me think about what was going on. Um, of all the things related to my Crohn's disease, my colostomy story is the hardest to tell. And a lot of people do not know a lot of it. And the few people that kept me alive during that, thank you. Because that was the first time I was ever, if you want to call it suicidal, in my life. Um, because I didn't know how to handle what was going on. I didn't know how to handle the pain correctly. Um, we, called me pangry, at family gatherings, and my sensory overload was the worst ever. But it was to the point where my rectum was so swollen I couldn't sit properly. And my GI would be like, okay, what is, you can't even sit up. Like, I would literally lean because the swelling was primarily on my left side, and there was more inflammation in other areas. I'm not gonna, for those that know me, I won't get too personal, but there was a other swelling in other areas, and I was miserable. And my rectum was so swollen that it was like a pastry bag tip, to where it literally would just be like a flat piece of stool that would like just be like a Play-Doh thing. And so to get that, with how much I would have to go to the bathroom or need to, and to try to push that out, I would spend hours in the bathroom for a bowel movement. Like, we had to base hanging out with me. Like, I didn't go out much, and when I did, it was miserable. And so there was a group of friends that got me through that before, during, and after, where we would just, have movie nights and, things at the house, and make food that I could have and stuff. And they even had colonoscopy prep parties for me and such. And yeah, y'all kept me alive. Um, but yeah, I was miserable. And so there was times where I quit eating to avoid the pain of having to go to the bathroom. And like, I looked at food and I just felt pain without even eating it. So yeah, I numbed myself a lot during that, mentally and physically, just to survive. And it got to the point where my body shut down, and I had a roommate at the time, and she was just like, I cooked dinner. I was fine. I was upbeat. I was happy. I sat down and I said, I'm not hungry. And she goes, well, yeah, I hate when that happens too, or whatever. Like, not bad way, but, played it off. And then I apparently turned white as a ghost and I just dropped my fork. And that's the last thing I remember before she just loaded me up and got me in the car to the ER. And, I assumed I had a fever because I think she checked my fever and it was pretty high, she said. And I felt it because when I get a fever, I get really cold. And so, like, she layered me up and we went to the ER and I was kept. And, there's some pretty awful core memories before the GI that I was assigned pretty much chastised me for going to my local hospital when I was starting to be seen in St. Louis. And I was like, well, I wasn't going to have her drive me to St. Louis to go to, like, I couldn't understand it, but I was also really fucking sick. And I was in and out of it. And, like, I didn't know what was going on. And, so yeah, they just passed me off to St. Louis, which I was grateful for, but I had to go via ambulance. And if you've ever ridden in the back of the ambulance, like, you're backwards, you're facing out the back window, and I'm sick with intestinal problems in a ambulance, which they don't have good shocks, man. And like the light being on, and I don't like light, and going backwards, like I almost vomited 90 times, and that I was so sick and so miserable, and they didn't go the speed limit, so it took like 4 hours. I live 2 hours from St. Louis max, depending on where you're going in St. Louis, and because of traffic it can take longer, but it took 4.5 hours to get me there. And the only cool thing that I remember was, like, they took me in through the bottom of the hospital, and I was like, I'm in the bat cave because I was so fucking out of it. And I snapped a really bad picture. And this is actually when my Instagram account started, was during this hospital stay. And yeah, so I got sent up to St. Louis, and they told me I was definitely having a resection. And I was like, okay, because we knew I was really sick, and that was not new information. But the bag was brought up again. And my mom, who raised me, and my oldest brother were at the hospital. They had come up to St. Louis when they could. And core memory. I had a really big room at the end of at the end of the floor, and the doctor was kind of like leaning on a windowsill, and there was just light behind him. And then it was, my mom, and then my brother, and then me in the bed. And we had talked about it the day before with nobody else in the room, and he said, you're at a medium need for it. And he said all this in front of my brother and mother after I said yes. And so I was at a medium need for it. I was getting the resection before I was being released, and they were waiting for me to be healthy enough, because it took a week for my fever to break and stay broken long enough for me to even be considered for the surgery. And I couldn't eat anything. I lost weight. I was miserable. And he said, you're getting the resection no matter what. He said, but there's no telling when you might need the bag. He goes, you could be in the middle of healing from this and have to be rushed back up here in an emergency situation and get it. He's like, you can be 6 months out from the surgery and get it again. And I'd had 3 resections. I've been opened in the same spot. The scar was already getting bigger each time. And I knew how to handle that. I could handle a resection. And, like, I was kind of trained in it. So that's not that big a deal. So I went ahead and I said yes. And my mother and brother pretty much got whiplash from whipping around so hard because I had been so vehemently against it. And yeah, so I agreed to the bag voluntarily because I wanted to agree to it, whether I wanted to agree to it or not, versus it being forced on me and I wake up with one. And I've talked to friends where that's happened to them, And it was the right choice for me. And it was the right choice for me because it was another one of those situations where I got off of pain medication pretty quickly in the hospital, and they're like, "You're not even hitting your button." I'm like, "You took out what hurt. I'm good." But after the resection, I did ask the doctor, and I was like, "So when can we reverse it, do you think?" And that's when I was hit with it. It needs to be permanent. And I didn't know that before I did it. And I'm glad he said it then. But that was my last resection. I was going on a spree of every 5 to 6 to 7 years, I needed a resection. And I haven't had a resection since. Ostomies are not a cure. Ileostomies are not a cure, but they do relieve symptoms for a lot of people. But unfortunately, I still had to have my rectum removed 10 years later without using it because my GI surgeon at the time, when I had my ostomy, said, if we hook you back up using your rectum again, we'll flare it back up. He goes, I don't think there is a scenario where any doctor would do that to you, and you would probably agree with it too, knowing what, just assuming what you've been through. And it was hard to take, but I was glad he was honest with me, and it was a private conversation, and I felt my feelings. But yeah, and so, less than 10 years later, I started having issues with the rectum when I wasn't using it. And I was like, I'm not going through all that again. I want to take it out. And luckily, I had the same surgeon that did my ostomy removed my rectum. And between those surgeries, I had my gallbladder removed in 2020 during the pandemic. That was fun. And when I had my rectum removed, I also at the same time got a complete hysterectomy. So we were really worried about things. And I have bladder issues now. And that was the one thing that I was promised I wouldn't have. And I also had an abdominal flap done. I don't know the technical name for this surgery, but I have one ab muscle on my right side because my ostomy is on my left side. So my ostomy is on this side, so they couldn't take a muscle over here because I also have a hernia for my ostomy. And so they took an ab muscle, I think the middle one, and they detached it enough to where it's floating in my pelvis because I'm missing so many body parts, including the rectum, I had a whole hysterectomy, all of it's gone. And I'm missing I'm missing my appendix. I'm missing all this stuff. So I have so much space that the human body will fill it with fluid if there's not a body part there. So I have an abdominal muscle that floats in my pelvis. And so my core has all been out of whack for the last 2 years. And physical therapy for my back has kind of been helping with that. And I decided to remove my belly button. So that comes back. Since my ostomy, and the scar tissue from going around it so much was like, it was like kind of halfway covered, and when my ostomy would leak, it would go right into my belly button a lot. And because it usually leaks when I'm laying down or something. And when it would do that in those times, getting it clean was really, really, really hard. And I would unknowingly not get everything out sometimes, and then the skin would get eaten away from the stool. And it was horribly painful. And so I was just like, hey, I was told back in 94 that you can remove a belly button. And luckily, since I had such a good plastic surgeon doing the abdominal flap, she was like, yeah, that's no problem. I can do that. That's kind of actually cool. And so she was like, she told me how she would. I was like, you're magic. That's great. Fucking do it. And so, yeah, I lost another body part in the fact that I don't have a belly button. And since my top surgery, I opted to not get nipples for many reasons. So I literally look like the Ken doll I always said I wanted to look like. So, ta-da! So yeah, that's all of the surgeries that are just intestinal and GI tract related. I've had a lot of other stuff that happened because of my Crohn's. I've had probably 20 colonoscopies to, keep me, medically watched and see what we need to do and see if medicines are working and what's going on. I've had one before every surgery. I've had one 3 years ago to see if I needed to be put on a medication, and then there was loopholes and shit and all kinds of stuff that didn't happen because of it, and I never got put on it, and now we're seeking another treatment. So since it's been so long since my last one, I get one in February. It's fine, but for every surgery on this card, well, not every surgery, I apologize. For every year on this card, I've been put under anesthesia. I've had more surgeries than this. I've had at least 20 colonoscopies, and all but one I have been put out for because of my rectum. They've had to use a child scope because of, especially during the years when my rectum was so inflamed, and my GI is a lifesaver, and he's like, I don't want you awake for this. He goes, not in a bad way, he goes, you won't handle it well, you don't want to see what's going on, we're gonna knock you out. And there was one time I had to do one awake, and yeah, that was not fun. I have failed 4 major MABs, as they call them, for Crohn's. I was on Remicade for 2.5 years, and I was allergic to it. I have permanent damage in my throat from it. I got hives head to toe every time, and one of the next to last times, they realized it was in my throat every time. That was just one side effect for that. I failed Cimzia. We tried Humira back to back over a couple of years, and then Stelara was the first medication to actually work for me. And then it didn't. So, yeah. And those are expensive medications, and there's side effects to every medication that I've ever been on. And we have dubbed me the 1% factor, because I get the shit that they don't even tell people they could happen, because usually 1% people get those side effects. Hi. I'm that guy. And so every medication that I've been put on for my Crohn's has made me sicker than my Crohn's. And so we eventually stopped the guinea pig assignments and let me stop and take a break between medications, and that's what's been happening since the Stelara quit working. And a couple of years ago, we wanted me to get back on something, but stress is a big factor for me. And I had a really serious problem that we could not figure out, and my GI kept saying it's stress repeatedly every time we talked about it. But I was worried I was going to have to, it was my throat, and it would just close up. And food and smoking and, different things would cause it, and it could just happen like that. And I was with the person that I eventually married during this time, and they have kids, and we created our own sign language for me to tell everyone I was okay. I just couldn't catch my breath, and I couldn't stop coughing. And eventually, near the end, it started happening so bad that I would pass out from coughing so hard. I vomited. I would pee myself after my hysterectomy, and all kinds of things because I'd be coughing so hard. And it only gets triggered now from marijuana and liquid ibuprofen. Because after my divorce, about 4 months after my divorce, it completely stopped. I had to take a medication sometimes when it would either I would be coughing, and or I knew I was going to be coughing, like I could feel like constricting. And it was a medication for heart attack patients that caused a migraine so bad I would have to go to bed. So it was either cough and have all this other stuff happen, or take these pills that literally just put me on my ass in a different way. And that's where I was at in life for a couple of years while we were trying to get me on another medication. And some of my symptoms have gone away after my divorce, because stress is a big factor in life and in my Crohn's. But time is catching up to me. Also, eating at a local restaurant that I work at. I knew it was going to become a problem, and I tried things on the menu that I shouldn't have tried, but then whenever I learned the ingredients to certain things, I quit trying some of the things. But there's a lot of things on the menu that are now in moderation, and are becoming to where I get cheeseburgers most of the times now, or things that, don't have the fun stuff at the restaurant. And, that's okay. It's been a great run for the last year and a half that I've worked there, and it is my favorite local restaurant. And I just would only eat it once a month beforehand. And It's not a new thing for me in my life. Um, but, it makes you emotional whenever, you pretty much have to eat like a toddler all the time and have picky eater status and stuff like that. But it's just a part of everything. And, um, I've been legally disabled since 2008 because my GI at a I was opening a store as part of the crew that was opening stuff. So I was working all over the store and helping with displays and moving dog food and shit and all kinds of stuff. And the day the store opened, I packed a bag to work my 9 hour shift to have an hour off between two breaks throughout the shift. And it was a soft opening. I think it was a friends and family opening or something like that. And I took a bag with me, took my lunch like always and everything. And then at the end of my shift, I was like, hey, can I get a ride? And someone was like, oh, yeah, cool. You live over here. I was like, actually, I need to go to the ER. And they're like, is that what the suitcase is for? I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to get admitted. And I was. I was that sick. And that was the time that my GI personally came to the hospital and said my work ethic was going to kill me. And he was not wrong because I still, since 2008, have had to keep myself in check in multiple ways. And so my disability helps me greatly, and it hinders me in the ways it should because I would try to work more. But, I'm allowed to work part time, but there's restrictions to it, and I have to follow that or I lose my disability, and I can't work a 40-hour week in anything that I'm qualified for and live in this economy and not get sick. So, you know, it's a blessing and it's not a curse, but, it's annoying that it's right and that I need this to live any kind of a normal life to where I feel like I can take care of myself. So yeah, that's that's about it. Um, 10,000 days. um, I do my damnedest to not let it get to me as much as I can, and it does make me really, really, really annoyed whenever able-bodied people literally expect me to do more, and I do it, and yeah, amongst other things. People like to tell me what to eat, what not to eat. People like to tell me what to do, what not to do, and not listen to my boundaries. And I do understand that I push my boundaries at times, but there are times where I'm saying like literally, this is okay. Thank you for reading an article, but not every article applies to me or whatever. So, and it's usually people that don't know me well that cross those lines. And there have been people married into my families that have been like, oh my God, I wish I could go to the hospital for a week. No, you don't. No, you don't. It is the worst place to heal. It is the worst place to be. Um, Nurses are overworked and underpaid by far. By far. By far. If you are a nurse and you are watching this, I applaud you. Y'all are underrated by far. Um, every once in a while, you will get a bad nurse. I am blessed that only my third hospital visit was the worst nurse of my life. And if my family is watching this, they probably remember that nurse because, yeah. And there was a nurse tech that my mom had to kick off my case to. And that was not anything he did specifically. It was the fact that he had smoked, and even though he washed his hands, when he came in the room even, I could still smell the smoke and it made me vomit. And I had just quit vomiting for the first time in days. So, yeah. That was not he was a bad guy. That was just hey, shit, that fucking sucked. But I'm lucky that for all I've been through, I try not to play a martyr. I try not to play the victim card. I try not to be like, well, I'm sick. No, I don't do that shit as much as I can. And whenever I do cancel on you, I swear to God, it was literally, I should have went to the ER and didn't. And I try to push through stuff too much. I do. Um, but more and more stuff gets taken from me. Um, and right now, that's not Crohn's related. It's physically from an injury. And that triggers all of, the stuff I have to say no to. Um, Listening to your body is really hard for anybody. I know that. And especially when there's trauma, when there's people who are like, oh my God, what's sick? What's wrong with you now when you open up about it? Or, you find out they have private conversations saying you talk about it too much. And oh my God. Well, when you sit by yourself in a library and see online that you're going to die at 14, and you remember the first time you ever talked to somebody else that had this random bunch of letters and this name of a disease that no one could say or spell correctly, yeah, I'm going to talk about it. I've talked about it for 30 years, and not doing so would have made me a completely different person that nobody would want to be around, and I wouldn't want to be around, and I probably wouldn't be living. Um, so I do celebrate December 18th in different ways, and I've had some very memorable December 18th in my life. And December 18th, 1998, I started drag, actually. It was my first time on stage. I did a Studley Santa pageant. I saw Wicked on December 18th, the year before my ostomy. And I cried like a bitch when Defying Gravity came on. And I've gone to football games. I've done drag shows. Done a lot of things. And if I don't go out and do something, if there's nothing that, happens, I've had some quiet parties and stuff. I've had colonoscopy prep on December 18th before. Um, I watch Rent the most. And that's why I got a tattoo of Jonathan Larson's handwriting for how many minutes there are in a year. Um, and I'm getting another Rent related tattoo today. Um, and other things are happening today. And it will probably be one of my most memorable. And as Rent and Jonathan Larson would say, how do you measure a year? How do I measure 10,000? I lost the card already. 10,000 plus days. 10,956 days. And it's the same answer. And it's love. It really fucking is. For people to love me for me and to learn recipes, to do research on their own and come with me to me with questions. People have researched medications. They've researched the medications I'm on. People have stayed home and not gone to the bar because my immune system was so trashed from the medication I'm on. I'm not allowed out of the house because a cold would put me in an ER. Uh, the people that have driven me to surgeries, colonoscopies, and more, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Anyone that's ever listened to me, anyone that asked questions about my bag, anybody that has worn purple for Crohn's disease awareness and ostomy stuff. I can't even think of all the things that people have done for me. To not treat me different, but respect and be empathetic and just be a friend. I do my best to live like I'm not sick. And when it catches up to me and I am violently shown that I am different, I am not normal, and I have to listen to my body, the people that stay beside me and help me through it and don't make me feel bad for it and don't critique my weird ways and my OCD about it because it keeps me alive, thank you. Love languages are a big thing for me, and I speak everybody else's. That's my love language to my friends. I learn yours and I speak them for you, whether you know it or not. So, if you've done anything that I've listed, encouraged me on a Facebook post, shown me love and respect, and anything in between, that's a love language for me. And it has kept me alive. Because being whatever form of mentally ill that I am and having a chronic illness is not a fun combination. And seasonal depression and depression from anything I've gone through, anything in between, has very much been a factor in my life. And I have not handled it the best of ways. And I don't know anybody that can. We all have a bad day. We all have a bad couple of months. And in the grand scheme of things, Crohn's related wise, for the most part, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a pain pill addict. You know, but I'm honest. And I'm doing better than I've ever done before. Um, Even though I'm facing another colonoscopy, I'm hopeful for the meds that we're thinking might work and hopeful that I don't need another resection. Because I'm not in remission, but I'm doing well. I can still function and I have limited pain Crohn's wise. It's my injury that, if you know about me being with a cane now and such, that's my biggest complaint in life. But at the same time, is it one of those things where I went back to the GI because I knew I needed to be on something for my GERD and my acid reflux. And when they were asking me questions, I was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. And then, like, they were asking me questions, and, like, you scored pretty low. Are you sure you're okay? I listened to the doctor, and we're being more proactive, and hopefully we're catching things ahead of time to maybe I don't need a resection. But normally my anxiety would be really bad, especially this time of year and literally on December 18th. Um, I'm okay. Today is going to be a very emotional day. Um, Good, bad, or indifferent, because I will be thinking about things more than I normally would. Um, and that's okay. My feelings are valid. I've been through hell. Um, I have literal scars to show for it, but I'm still going to live life with love. Um, because it's miserable to not. uh, and, for the first time in my life, have goals. And it's been mostly just, getting through the now. And I tend to not look forward to things far in advance because I don't know if I'm going to make it. I try not to get that way, but, you know, I didn't, you know, I don't know. There's just a lot of things I can't do easily, and it's harder and harder and harder. And I didn't think I would live to see 30. And then I hit 30. And I never thought I'd outlive Elvis. I have a weird obsession with Elvis. And he died when he was 42. And I'm 44. So something's going right. So, yes, I have limited income and I have, limited expendable income. But there's things I want to do. And I made a 6-year plan on my birthday alone. And within that plan, there are little plans along the way, and continuing this and streaming is a major part of that to give me, something to look forward to. And I'm looking into other things throughout my life. And there's something that I'm hoping I get to do in my 50s. And if I can't, then by then I'll have something else in mind. And like I said, I have 5, 6, 7, 8-year goals ahead of me. And that means I have to be proactive in my health, and I have to listen to my body. I have to listen to my friends more. And I have babies to take care of. And I'm in therapy. I talk to my psychiatrist at least once a month, about every 3 weeks. I have started mental medication again. I'm taking care of my mental health more than I have since before my divorce. I've been seeing my therapist, I think, for over a month now. I would say at least 4 visits. I see her every week, and I'm getting a colonoscopy in next year, and I'm listening to my GI, and he is retiring, and I'm getting a new GI at some point. And that's scary for me, but I knew that was coming soon, and it is confirmed that the process to that is starting, and I need to get in with that sooner versus than later. And yeah, so it's been a hell of a ride. There's been a lot of downs, but that makes me appreciate the ups so much more. So, what is Crohn's disease? Crohn's disease is a lot. And it's misunderstood. It's a punchline still in jokes, as are ostomies. And my ostomy is the only reason this video is even happening. And that story is just that a nurse took me outside, and I had already said yes to the ostomy, and I knew nothing. Misinformation is exactly why I didn't want an ostomy, because of the bad jokes, because of the smell association to old people, people in wheelchairs, gunshot victims. All true, but it's stereotypes. And misinformation kept me miserable and going through torture. And she took me outside for her smoke break to get me out of the hospital. I've been in the hospital for a week. And she wheeled me outside around dusk. And she was like, hey, did you know that you can watch people change their ostomy bag on YouTube? And pulled up a video, put it in my hand, gave me her phone, and walked off. And for about 15, 20, 30 minutes, I watched YouTube videos. She did that for me the next day 3 times throughout the day, because I think it was like Saturday night, and then Sunday 3 times. She did that for me throughout the day and night. And mentally, I was like, at some point, I want to repay this favor. And whether it was watched or not, I didn't care. And I think a friend actually asked me if they could watch my bag change. And I said, I can film it and send it to you. I would do that because I lived in Kentucky at the time. And so I did. And then I uploaded it to YouTube. And I did, I think, 3 videos total about my ostomy. About 9-10 years ago. It's my most viewed videos. And yeah, the one that is the most popular has 30,000 views plus, and is my most commented on video. And And I still am in shock with that. And I haven't done anything about my ostomy since. And that might change. I don't know. Because a lot of people thanked me for it in different ways. And it's still taboo. It's still hard to talk about. It's still, I still hide it as much as possible in multiple ways. But in some ways, I literally can't. And you can see it, in my opinion, all the time. And I have stigmas of myself because of it. It was the hardest thing I ever went through, emotionally, and physically, and in vain reasons. I did not want to get a bag before I got top surgery. And so that was really hard for me to still have to see my chest and a bag. And so at least I got half of that out of the way. And, I have skin allergies and my skin is a mess and it hurts most days. And, it's a process, but it made me stronger. Most things have. And um, I don't think about it as much as I think about other things, if that makes sense. Um, but I think about it a lot at the same time, especially, when I'm in a flare and it's really, really active and I can't even get through a work shift without running away to the bathroom so much. Thank God I have a job where I can kind of do that. Because whenever I worked at a desk job, they started giving me strikes because I had to get up to go to the bathroom and they were timing my bathroom breaks. And that was before the bag. So, ugh. And yeah, this is the longest video I've ever done. And I had a theory that it would be. I don't know if anyone's gonna watch this all the way through. And like I've said before, this whole channel is for me. Doing my transition was made the most sense next. Um, and I knew this video was coming, years ago. Uh, and I don't know if I covered anything that I planned to in the way that I planned it, but at the same time, that's why this is as unscripted as ever. But, I had to have flashcards because 30 years of medical, good God. um, so, yeah, there are no coincidences. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. No coincidences in my life, and Crohn's is one of those. It is absolutely the reason why I didn't get into the service. And I have to remind myself that, one of my favorite Garth Brooks songs, sometimes you have to thank God for unanswered prayers. Like, even though at the time you cannot fathom, and you cannot fathom being without or whatever, and then you are, and maybe it's 10 years later, maybe it's 5 days later, maybe it's whatever. I don't know if you can hear that. um, but I'm exactly who I was supposed to be. And it's taken me a long time to get here. I've shared that I am many things in my life, and I don't like being a statistic or put in a box, but, I still list off things that I am in my bios. And I'm human. And I'm practically imperfect. And that's it. That's all I got for you today. Thanks, guys.